Hello, Gina. How are you today?
Good, good. Nice
It's
to
very,
see you.
yeah, it's nice to have you. So you just got out of church, is that right?
Yes, we go to church every Sunday here in Mount Pleasant. Our church is actually in the next town over in Franksville, but it's a great community
Now, are you just going to church
tradition.
because you're running for office, or have you been going
No,
forever? Tell me the
been
truth.
going forever. I was baptized Catholic as a little baby and grew up in the Catholic Church. Folks are still Catholic. My dad goes to daily mass. And I still consider myself Catholic in spirit, but I'm more now Bible based, if that makes sense. I am
Mm,
married a second time, and I think when you marry somebody a second go round, you want to make sure you're really in sync on the faith.
mm,
So my husband and I decided that we would go together when I moved to Wisconsin 4 years ago and find a church that suited both of us. So that's
yeah,
kind of
it's so
our thing.
interesting. I'm newly married, and having conversations with people just about being newly married, and you realize, yeah, it's important, and it's so interesting how faith can lead you be involved with your partner, and then when your social life, how it can break away from other. It can be so interesting. So faith is an amazing thing. Yeah. So it's always been an important part of your life.
It always has. And if, I don't want to get too personal with you and your brand new
Yeah.
wife as a newlywed, but I think when you get married, and this would be my advice to anybody, make sure you're in the same page, in sync
Yeah.
on the faith piece of it. That's a really foundational, high
Yeah.
priority for successful marriage.
Right. Fortunately, yeah, thank you. You're right. And in my case, we're more aligned than not aligned. So
Good.
it's all good. But, even within, being two Jewish people, there's a whole
Hmm.
range of
Sure.
viewpoints that you can have. So it's, you know, um,
Well, my
unlikely to be an
best
issue to us, thank God. But it's,
But the thing is, you talk about it ahead of time and you know that you're both been, like, if
yeah,
you have children, you'll raise
right,
them together in the
right,
Jewish faith.
right, right.
My best friend from college married a Jewish guy, and she wasn't Jewish, but they had already talked ahead of time. How will we raise the children? And they
Sure.
decided Jewish. So I always
Mm,
I send the Happy Hanukkah, and then I do a separate little Christmas tree card to her just to keep her, but it's good to have those discussions, so that you're
right.
you're in sync.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more. Who ends up running for office? You're running for state legislature, yes?
Correct. Yes, I'm running for the state assembly, District 66, which is southeast Wisconsin, includes the town I live in, Mount Pleasant, Sturtevant, the neighboring village, Elmwood Park, kind of a subset village in itself, and then South Racine. Racine is a big city, and so it got split into two. So it's just the south part of Racine, but I try to stay in tune with all the things going on. So the state assembly seat has been held by the same person for 8 years. Should she get reelected, it would be a decade of 10. And so I'm the new voice, the new choice, the outsider, the somebody else coming in, giving people an opportunity to choose somebody else to be their voice in the state assembly. So people, when I go to the doors, they're like, what exactly is that? I'm like, I would be your voice to vote for what you think's important in the legislature. And then I give them a couple examples like no tax on tips or the surplus. Would you want your surplus back or do you want it to stay in Madison? And by answering some of those questions, then they really get it. They understand, oh, that makes sense. I do want somebody that represents my voice. I don't want somebody that would be voting the opposite of what I believe. And so that's why I'm in this race. I don't feel like the incumbent is representing the majority of the people, and I want to make sure that their voices are heard.
What makes you feel prepared? I'm really asking what about your life led you to this decision to run for political office? What
I
what is it about your experience that you feel this makes sense for you?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a military family, so I have a deep-seated appreciation and respect for our military, our law enforcement, everyone that serves, so that we have the freedom that we do to practice the religion we want, say what we want to say. And so I think that kind of was the root. When I grew up, we traveled all over the place, so you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to go in
Mm,
and make friends, make
hmm.
connections. And so I think that gives me a lot of life perspective. I also have had every job under the sun. So from the berry
Hmm.
fields when I was little to as a teenager working at Big Scoop, waitressing,
Hmm.
through college, bartending, doing waitressing as well. And then right out of school, kind of a sales position, and then a startup position, worked for Power Bar Energy Bar. You being in the California, you're probably familiar with Power Bar. They were founded in
Yeah.
Berkeley, California. And then once I had a family, it was like, well, we know we need two incomes to survive in California, but I still want to be home with the kiddos and have that piece of it. So I did real estate. I
Hmm.
got my real estate license and started doing that, and I could work my schedule around the kids. So 20 years in real estate, 10 years in consumer sales product sales, and then the rest, lots of little odd jobs throughout. But everywhere I've gone, Brian, especially the 30 years I lived in California, I was always doing community service in the community, whether it was the PTA, coaching my daughter's soccer, softball, involved in the church of, gosh, I've had 25 years with the Wings organization, which was Women in God's Spirit based in Northern California, where we do lots of outreach and different projects. And the other long-term community outreach, or I guess community civic and organization, is Toastmasters International.
Hmm.
I've, gosh, been on that club for about 25 years, helped with a
I've
number of
always
different.
been told to go to Toastmasters, do
Ah,
Toastmasters. It's all that.
it is all that and then some. It's the most cost-effective way you can develop your speaking and leadership skills with surrounded by people who really want you to do well and encourage you to do well.
So
And
how do you get better at your leadership skills?
they give you, oh my gosh, they give you to work up to the different levels. You have to help form a club. You have to mentor people in a club. You have to do an outreach project in the community. So they're constantly giving you ways and avenues to step up your game. I had
Wow.
a guy in my local Toastmasters club who was a judge and, way above me in law and all of the experience, but wanted to get his message across succinctly. And so he came in and he sharpened the saw. So a lot of people,
Mm.
when I lived in Northern California, we get a lot of folks that would come in. English would be their second language, and so they really wanted to work on their English, and it's fantastic for that. Or anybody that's doing sales. We had some guy who wanted to give a great speech at his best friend's wedding, so he practiced that speech. It
Hmm.
just depends on
Wow.
whatever walk of life, but it's a great organization. So I've been a part of that as well. I- And here locally, I'm a trustee with the village. I'm been the HOA president of our neighborhood HOA, which doesn't
Mm.
sound like a big deal, but that's the
No, it is a
that's the
big deal.
toughest job on the planet. And you have to be very nonpartisan. You have to listen to everybody's side.
Talk
No
about
one's going to
local
be
government.
happy. Exactly. I did
Mm.
that for like 8 years in Northern California for my last community, and I've done it for a couple of years here. So I'm kind of used to just getting involved and doing what's right, making sure things get done, and that's just kind of what I'm known for. I didn't go out looking to run for state assembly. It found me. I had people giving my name up and recommending, and finally I just was like, all right, I'll do it. So.
All right, you dragged me into this like George Washington. I love it. So, no, really, though. So real estate to me is key. I mean, to understand property taxes and local services, it's really very relevant. So the background makes sense from A to Z. So actually, so very interesting.
Yeah, and it's helping me when I'm thinking about policy for affordability. Two things that are interesting in real estate. One, there's no inventory. There's no inventory in Washington, or there was no inventory in California. It ends up being driving up the price, and people can't believe this house is worth this much, this house is worth that much. So how do we solve that? How do we get people into homes? What kind of grant programs are there? How can we do first time home buyer incentives? All that on the front end. How do we take that middle person who they're expanding their family? How do we get it so they can move up and take some of that equity and roll it up? How can we make housing a more affordable from a builder standpoint? How can we cut the red tape so that we're not charging builders and developers so exorbitant and all the fees and red tape that now that house is an extra $45,000, $50,000. So there's that end. And then on the other end, the seniors, I can't tell you how many seniors. I had a 20-minute conversation with a guy yesterday. He's lived in his home for 55 years. How can we expect our seniors to stay in their homes when the property taxes keep going up and they're not making any more money? There is not one policy in
Hmm.
Wisconsin that helps seniors stay in their homes by either freezing their property tax or limiting their property tax or doing something that mitigates it so that they don't feel like they have no options or no choices. So all of those things are kind of making me realize there's lots I can do and there's a lot of things I can
Mm.
come up with to help.
So, in that sphere of affordability that you were just talking about, would you describe those set of policies as one way politically, or are they diverse? Is it, how would you describe that approach in
I
terms
think
of
it's,
political?
yeah, politically, I think it's pretty appealing to everybody across the board. My candidacy, although I'm a Republican on the ballot, I'm an independent, 30-year independent thinker, voter. I always voted for the person or the policy or what seemed to be the right thing at the right time. And when I came to Wisconsin from California for second marriage, I
Mm.
looked around and realized that my just middle of the road viewpoints were really much more aligned with the Republican side. And
Mm.
when I looked to see who the representative was for this district, her viewpoints are not moderate Democrat. They're very far left
Right,
progressive.
right.
Um, my dad's a Democrat, as is my
Mm.
mom and my brother. One brother, I have two brothers. And so, yeah, I check in with them all the time. We have a lot of
Mm.
common ground that the two
Mm.
of us that we all share. And that's
Mm.
how I kind of check in to make sure I'm on the right track, that I'm appealing to both sides. It's not just a
Right,
one-sided representation.
right. Yeah, that's a good point. And, for my little story here, I was a guy who always voted for Democrats, just grew up in a very progressive home. Thought I thought deeply about politics. In hindsight, didn't think deeply at all. Was just watching CNN and MSNBC and kind of going that way. Started to think a little bit more for myself as I got into law school, 8 years ago now at the age of 28. And Trump, was coming onto the scene. That was just a shakeup, it kind of made everyone reevaluate. Um, and then just after studying critical race theory in my final year of law school, I got an up close and personal view of kind of that fulcrum divisive issue, the basis of, hey, this is an alternative viewpoint, how you could view America. And America is not such a nice place. And it really scared me, really freaked
Mhm.
me out. And so that is the question, how big of a percentage of the Democratic Party does that view occupy? And I
True.
personally have made the calculation that it's a larger percentage on the left than the opposing view on the right occupies of the right. So, there's extremes on both sides. It's a crazy time. So, yes. So, I guess another way to ask the question about affordability would be, I guess it's not a super far left thing, or are there any components of your approach that would be appealing to a socialist? I know it's not helpful necessarily to use these labels, but anything super far left there?
No, I don't think we have far left, far right. I am really in the middle. I'm trying to have, a circle that represents the majority of folks. I mean, the socialists, some of the ideals that I'm hearing from socialists don't resonate with me at all, like defunding the police, open borders, you know, that we don't have a country if we have open borders, and we sure as heck don't have a society if we don't have law and order.
Yeah,
So, but
100%.
what's interesting about that, we don't have prisons and the population.
Hmm.
I've worked in a couple prisons. I did some ministry in a local prison, and then as a Toastmaster, I did serve some time, no pun intended, but I
Hmm.
was able to work at San Quentin, which is a very remote, high security prison. And I got to know a lot of inmates. We would interview each other. We worked on speeches. We worked on a lot of different things. And I was so impressed with the opportunities that were available.
Mm.
And I think some people are going to go to jail or to prison, and they're going to turn their life around. And come out on the other end better, hopefully as better people. And there's some that are just not going to rehabilitate at all. But we have to protect our average everyday citizens.
Yeah.
And I stopped when I lived in Northern California because of the Democrat policies on crime. I don't know if do you remember the name of it, but I'm sure you're familiar. Do you remember when it was up to $1,000 or just under 1,000, you could steal anything and it was a misdemeanor? And that,
Yeah. Right.
remember? And then
I
everybody
don't
was,
remember the name, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, but that was like the last three
Right.
years. They finally voted it out this last year, but it was like good 3 or 4 years worth. That's when all the smash and grabs started. The big famous one up in
Hmm.
Walnut Creek, and we had these cute little consignment store in Danville that little old ladies were, with the jewelry that got smash and grabbed a couple times. The
Yeah.
Costco got smash and grabbed. Like all of a sudden, the crime, just because it's just sort of a part of the society, everybody's stealing. I remember people saying, when they go through those self checkouts, they're like, everybody's stealing anyway. What does it matter? It just
Mm.
sort of the whole,
Yeah.
it was
Right.
horrible. And there's just video after video. That guy, Darren Stallcup, who's out in San Francisco, he's fighting the good fight. He was videotaping, people left and right. He would get in different fights. He would break things up. People were
Mm.
stealing from Walgreens. And then our beautiful downtown San Francisco, next thing you know, is all boarded up. All the businesses are leaving. They
Right.
can't
San
survive
Francisco.
this.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. The policies,
Yes.
I
You're very
here's the
familiar with progressive policies.
right. And so how does that help anybody? How does that help society? It doesn't. It erodes it. And so having lived through that in Northern California, and Wisconsin's not quite experienced that, I'm like, goodness gracious, I've got to do something before we turn into what Northern California was like for me or for you. You've experienced it down in San Diego, Southern
Hmm.
California. Has it cleaned up a little bit now that they've voted out that misdemeanor piece? Has that changed? Have you seen less of it?
I'm pretty isolated in San Diego. I'm in the area that I am. I can't really say that I can notice a change, honestly.
Well,
So,
I've seen it firsthand. I remember going to a San
mm,
Francisco Giants Dodgers game before I left, and I was like, okay, I've got to park in a lit, gated security guard
mm,
area. I do not want
mm,
it to be smash and grabbed. I have nothing in my car. Take everything with me. I did all the pre-planning that I could think of, and sure enough, the game went late. There went to extra innings. I came out. All the cars were smashed in. Even
mm.
my back window was smashed
Wh-
in. I had about a 30
When
minute
was
drive.
this?
And this was in 2022, and I left in
Mm,
23. We bought our home here in 22, and then I finally joined in 23. And everybody was just distraught. And somebody said, "Oh yeah, that's right. The guard leaves at like 10. So all the people around here know that the lights go out, the guard leaves. And so if your game goes later than 10 or 10:30, yeah, it's just like, come on, didn't you know?" It's kind of like it's your fault. Didn't you know that? Like,
right.
why would you
Mm,
park here in a gated $60 safeguard thing? Because like, you silly person, why would you? So it was like it kept being flipped, and then there was nobody to call. It's just a hotline where you call and it says, hit 5 if you've been, robbed. Hit
Hit
6 if your
five
car's
if
smashed
you have
in.
any possessions left at all. Hit six if you've been totally robbed. Yeah, I
Lord.
think there's a pretty widely understood consensus that California has been trending in the wrong direction in so many ways, despite the economic strength because of California is California. And so culturally, I think we definitely agree. Like the progressive, this stuff doesn't make sense. That's where the common sense line comes in Trump, and it's like, okay, like I get that. It makes total sense to me. And in my case, when you're studying the critical race theory, I'm like, okay, like I see the legal foundation, the cultural foundation, and it's really manifesting in all these different ways in society, and including these progressive policies that are soft on crime. They're just soft on crime, and they're not having good results. So for me, the big question is, let me take a sip of tea. Hold on, sip of tea, as I say. And
Sip of tea is very
my wife
good.
says I should call this show "Sip of Tea." Water
You
up if you
could
need
you
some.
could
So
have segments. Sip of tea with Brian.
exactly. The question is, okay, yeah, I don't go for the cultural stuff, but what about economically? And now I have clear thoughts on hard socialism and communism. History has taught us clear lessons. Okay, but is there anything there? That's what I'm still trying to explore on the progressive side, economically. Is there anything there? You know, and so just for me, that's where I'm trying to, before I put the final nail on the coffin and saying I am a hardcore Republican, period. I know I like the constitutional conservative judicial viewpoints. Those make sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
where the judges are more so following the law than making the law.
Correct.
Although, would you really want a judge to be a robot? It's an interesting thought experiment. There are these times in history where, you need a judge to exercise kind of, what would you call it? Some power, some sort of power. I guess there are these moments, but so that's an interesting thing. But on balance, I feel like a Republican these days as well. But I'm just wondering, whether it's healthcare or education or economy, is there something to the progressive side there that is appealing, or is it all, you
Now,
know,
I'm sure
free
there are
market is
some,
great, but
yeah, I'm sure there are some elements. Progressive folks are, let's treat everybody with kindness. That's one of, a buzzword, be kind. Of course, I want to be kind. I want to treat everybody fairly. I just don't look at people through a race lens. I have had a really good friend of mine. Uh, that's black, and we would do Zumba together, and we had so much fun, and we laughed, and we and did everything. And the next thing I know, when it was time for the Trump, and it was 2020, and it was leading up to the 2020 election, and then there were the riots and all this race of it. All of a sudden, she posted something about critical race theory, and
mm,
if you don't believe that, then you're not a friend of mine. And I had quite
mm,
a few friends that just said, if you're a Trumpster, what does that mean? Then we can't be friends. And so, gosh, why did we allow that to happen? Why
mm,
is there just such a division between the different political views? There's so much overlap. I remember back when my parents, now they're in their 80s, they would say, "Gosh, we'd have Thanksgiving dinner. We People would different have different opinions at Thanksgiving, and it would kind of was be good banter. And then at the end of the night, you respect and you give your hugs and you say your goodbyes." Now, what's being
sounds
dribbled out there
amazing.
is, don't have Thanksgiving together, cut your
Right,
family off, don't talk to
right.
them anymore. Like, holy smokes.
It's
Somebody's
true.
got an agenda, Brian.
I know. That is so true. And wow, this is actually really deep. I mean, and I like to think that with my little old podcast here, that I'm picking up on something real. Like I had really good timing. Like I got lucky. I got into law school. I picked an elective that appealed to me, and I got to the nerve center of this divisive ideology. And I looked, like I said, I looked around and said, this has really spread, and everything is fractured now. The culture is fractured. The culture is fractured, and Thanksgiving is another example. And you have guys like Nick Fuentes who correctly observe so many of the effects of critical race theory, and of course go too far and have way too extreme views and opinions and solutions, uh, and says things that are wildly inappropriate, but certainly have a correct observation that there is something that we've lost. Okay, and it's not it doesn't have to be that the percentage of white people has gone down, but it's the ability to have that discourse, that healthy discourse, has gone away. And
And
why? And
I
why? Because
remember
this ideology has taken hold.
I remember Charlie Kirk at one of his events was saying, "What is something that a black person can't do in the country that I can do?" Something to that effect. I'm
Right.
paraphrasing with one of his students. And he no the answer was that it wasn't anything. They couldn't the person he was speaking with couldn't come up with anything, and that just infuriates people because it's true. You have the same opportunities, to go to school, to do a trade school, to get help. Maybe you're socioeconomically disadvantaged. We have voucher programs, school choice programs. There are so many ways to help yourself achieve what you want in this lifetime, in our country. But it just takes effort, and it takes determination.
Mm.
It takes hard work, and those are the things that I really value, is the trust, being able to trust people, be able to give your word, commit to something, show hard work. And so I grew up in a military family. So we had every walk of life, very diverse, racially diverse within the military. My dad worked in social actions. So his whole job was affirmative action and helping people have that opportunity. Now he and I've had a couple discussions about it. I'm like, well, it went so far affirmative action wise that I think some of the folks were disadvantaged, in getting into colleges and things like that. There's just a lot that I don't like about it as far as it creates all this divisiveness. And I'd rather focus on how can we work together and be aligned and just talk with one another. I like that you are exploring this as part of your podcast is the framework, but really I think it's even more interesting is what are the steps that you saw that led you to believe that you were being maybe lied to or in a funnel in your own, like, what do they call it when you're only seeing
Echo
reinforcing what
chamber.
the echo chamber, yeah. So that's how where I felt like I lived in Northern California. I'd say, am I in the twilight zone? But it was just the echo chamber. You're only going to get what you believe, and it's going to keep being reinforced. And I think that's what happened with a lot of folks, my mom and dad included. CNN, MSNBC. They think Trump is just horrible, major TDS. And so I just have to smile and laugh and nod and think to myself, that's the only information they have. So therefore I can't be disgruntled because that's all that they don't know how to get on X. They've never been on X in their life. There's a whole generation of people that aren't even on X. And I remember when I first got on, I was thinking to myself, what? There's all this going on. Like there's somebody actually on the sidewalk reporting exactly what's happening behind them, like a Nick Shirley, just the
Very interesting.
exposure that he
Right.
has given to fraud and waste and abuse on all of this. It's amazing. You never would have seen that in the legacy media. So I love what X has done, and it's allowed you to put your voice out there, interview people like me so that people know that I really do want the best for everyone. I come in with the truest of intentions, but it's hard, Brian, because when you have an R on your name on the ballot or anywhere, a lot of people make a quick assumption judgment, and especially
Mm.
people that are not happy with Trump, then they say, "Well, I just can't vote for you then." But you know nothing about me, so we got to try to
So
work through those labels,
brilliantly said. Okay,
right?
I have a few things to say. But yes, working through the labels and having the truest intentions, let me be known for nothing else but that, and I'll be happy. Um, so that's number one. So took some notes there. So here we go. So going back to Charlie Kirk and affirmative action maybe going too far, and the mischaracterization of his views when he would. I like how you told that story about show me what a black guy in this country can't do that I can do. So first of all, that's what people like him and you and me don't like about CRT. It's this presumption. It's like it's whoa, whoa, whoa. We're all equal here. I grew up in an America where I feel like I grew up in a military family. It's funny. Of course I didn't, but I love America, and
Right.
I just am so proud of it and the melting pot and believe in that. And yes, there's a pot there. We don't have to melt the pot. That's the analogy I use. The pot is there for a reason, but it's a stew. The stew is good. It's a good stew. It's been a hard fought, but so believing that everyone has that dignity, being the foundation for wanting equality under the law, but not necessarily caring about equality of opportunity, because it's ultimately an extension of that dignity. Hey, you want to be lazy? Be lazy. You're a human being. You're a sovereign. So there's that. But they would say about him, oh, he also made that joke about that really off color, no pun intended, joke about black pilots. I wouldn't get on a plane with black pilots, right? Because they're all DEI hires. So defending Charlie here posthumously, I would say, people, that wasn't him saying black people can't be good pilots. That's him saying the systems we have create doubt that the person is
Right.
qualified.
That I
So,
think that was that he had given some good statistics. The percentage of people that are applying for pilots was very high white male. for whatever
Hmm.
reason. I forget the statistic.
Right.
Let's say 70% or whatnot. But that the quota of how many people of color, whether it's male, female, Latino, Black, whatever, was supposed to be a certain percentage. And Charlie's saying was, let's make sure it's the best. Okay, let's not put quotas in, because if we had a rank system and there were, 100 applicants, and we're going to take the top 50, but the top 50, 45 were white male. No, we're not going to take the top people. We're going to keep going down until we find the right. That, I think, was what he was trying to say. And I think it got misconstrued that
Yeah.
he was saying something about, well, he's not effective or he's not effective. That
That he
that
was
wasn't it at
racist.
all. Right.
Yeah.
Here's my question for that. For that, take that same logic. If we're going to make sure that all the quotas are exactly the same and everybody's represented, then why in the NBA, why aren't there half white guys?
Where the Jews
Why
at?
is it predominantly, oh, it's because they're the better players. It's the talent, it's the merit. That's why,
Right.
you know,
Why
same with
stop
the
it? Why not
same with the
extend that to every
WNBA.
single business? Yeah, exactly.
Could you
As a
imagine a
person who
football
like
team? No, we're not going to draft the
right.
best guys. We got to get the, we have to make sure there's Asian. We've got to make sure that there's white, Caucasian, maybe Hawaiian, whatever. It's just based
Yeah.
on who's best at the job. So we can do
It's so
that in
much work.
sports.
Imagine all the work, the bureaucracy. All right, where the Hawaiian? How many Hawaiians do we have? I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
No, it's much
I
better to.
just don't get it.
Yeah.
I have a black doctor who I absolutely love and adore. And I don't think of him as that. I just want the best guy. And he came recommended. A lot of people
Yeah.
get their doctors or their specialists because it's a personal recommendation. They took great care of me. I remember flying from Northern California to Wisconsin for my colonoscopy for this specific doctor because it was my husband's doctor, and he's amazing. So I think we just have to kind of understand that these decisions are really about who's best, who's best for the job and who's earned it. And try to look past that, that piece of it. But anyway, it's a great topic to think about, and I'm open to um other points of view, other perspectives. That's what they teach you in Toastmasters, to take
Mhm.
feedback, listen to it, marinate with it, take it for what it's worth, and then how you can do something better with it. So I'm open to all, and I don't have the answers for everything. I'm basing my campaign on listening to what people want. So when I develop my position or point of view on, for example, data centers or education,
I'm gonna
what do we
ask
have
you
to
about
do
that.
for our kids,
Yeah.
how to improve it? It's because I'm talking to teachers. I'm talking to teachers in my neighborhood, at Bunko, at the doors. I'm talking to people on the front lines, and that's how I come up with some of my policy positions, because I'm talking to people on the front lines. I think that's the most important, is to be a listener, listen to what's important to people, hear them out, process it, be open, and then respond. And be willing, if you're proven wrong or there's new information, to adjust. I mean, why do we have people so entrenched that they won't ever
Hmm.
move off their position? They won't listen to any new information, and they're just so entrenched. That's where you have to be able to say, the nonpartisan, or looking at what's best for people versus the political party. And I think that's what's we're missing a lot of that with
Yeah.
politicians nowadays. And I don't consider myself a politician. I'm a new person in the arena that wants to serve.
You can only say
Um,
that one time in
right. I
one
know.
ways. All right.
There you go. This is my freebie.
You
This is
use it. Yeah.
my one time. Exactly.
Very good. Yeah. No, I love all that. Honestly, I mean, I'm ready to move to your location and vote for you. I don't have it. I of course don't have it figured out yet either. And I have just found, to answer one of your questions earlier, what kind of shifted me to the right, what caused me to feel like I identify more like a Republican these days, and it was um, all the commentary, the material itself in those classes, but the commentary from the students reinforcing it times 10 was really
Mm.
kind of borderline frightening. The news bias, I started to really, and once I was in there hearing it and learning it, all of a sudden the news bias became more obvious. And of course, Russia Gate, didn't help, and then of course Biden's deterioration and swapping in Harris, just none of
I
that
remember,
worked. And
I remember asking my dad, who's 85, and I think that's
mm,
about what Biden's age was. I'm like, Dad,
mm,
don't you see the dementia?
mm,
Oh no, what are you talking about? What dementia? Oh. And then after the debate, oh well, yeah, he did seem a little off. And then, well, what about that when he was looking out into the wind and he didn't know where to get off stage? And so I think because of living in that CNN zone, everything was clipped and edited. My parents really
right,
honestly didn't see it until later,
yeah,
and they wanted
yeah,
to defend him to the end of time. And now they don't have much to say about it. And also, my parents weren't privy or didn't see the video of hordes and hordes and hordes of people coming into this country, at the
yeah,
Texas border, at the Arizona
mm,
border. And my folks lived down in Arizona, and I was so concerned for
mm,
them. They're like, oh, that's not happening. I'm like,
mm,
holy smokes, it is. So again, to your point, it's what you see and what's been reinforced. And until you get out of that little echo
yeah,
chamber, like you did in law school, I
mm.
even think California, though, it's still a big echo chamber. I think you're not getting,
Yeah, that's a
like,
good point. You
you
bring up
need
a
to
good
take your
point.
show on the road and go to
Mm,
the South or go to the East Coast, come to the
Fine Escort Tours
Midwest.
America.
Yep.
But you do bring up a good point that I had actually never really considered, which is, well, of course I've thought about, the ongoing polarization and echo chamberization of America with technology and the breaking down of the cult. It's the combination. First of all, I love thinking about technology and politics. So they have a very interesting relationship. But you have politically that the divisive ideology that is breaking up the culture. Then you have technology, which is piecing it off to people and feeding it, creating the echo chamber. So just so many reasons to be in an echo chamber today, and so rare to break out of it, I guess. And so law school is a good way to do it. I was lucky to have that experience, I suppose. But not having everything figured out, definitely humble humility. And it doesn't, so just because I now have a starting point of on the right side of the ledger doesn't mean that suddenly you shut the door to everything that might come from the left. I want to
Exactly.
talk to people. I want to learn. I mean, what fun would that be to be only on the right? What use would
Exactly.
that be? That doesn't make sense. So, finding the political identity is always going to be on. It's going to be ongoing. The label, it matters, I suppose. The principles matter, yes, of course. But also, life is dynamic and interesting. So,
And,
so
and
let's
I think we want to stay away from labels because now MAGA, sometimes people are saying that in a bad tone, a bad
right.
context. What is wrong with making America great? But there's a MAGA apparently group of people that are different than maybe a
Hmm.
Republican or a different conservative. I don't really
Right.
understand it myself. I just want to do what's right for people.
MAGA is supposed to
Brian,
be almost a counter label.
yeah, I don't
You could
understand
look at
what
it.
that is. Yeah.
Well, we
Uh,
could look at it optimistically and just say that maybe MAGA is supposed to mean forget the old labels. Are you
right.
pro America or not?
I think that's it. Pro America common sense. Pro America common sense. Do unto others as you want done to you. The golden rule. If we could just operate under that, guys, be American, proud Americans. Think for ourselves, but do what's right with common sense. Um, and then, as a Christian woman, what would Jesus do?
Hmm.
Ask for help. Know that we don't have all the answers, and that some of the answers we have to pray about and think about, and look to others for. That's part of why I'm in this race. Is God has put people in my path that I think, okay, God, this is something you want me to do, and so we just have to do the
Mm.
best with what we can. But I'm with you. I don't. I think we need to get away from the labels and the ideology. It's kind of like when you're in a sorority or in a fraternity in college, you're at Inc, you're a you're a Sig
Mm.
Ep, or you're a
Right.
Tri Delt, or you're this. It's like,
Right.
what is that? I'm a person within an organization. Don't label
Right.
me as such. And we can, he's a pilot, or he's a doctor, or you're a podcaster. She's
Right.
an influencer. We
So you could
we
go by
are
race, you
we're
go
more than that label.
socioeconomic, you could go
Hmm.
whatever. But I love it because I was never afraid. I mean, I was a loner, I guess would be the easiest way to describe it. But I mean, I had friends,
You were an
but
independent. You were
I was
finding
an
your way.
independent. I wasn't I
Mhm.
was not a loner.
That's right.
I never wanted to be around big groups, so I didn't go to the football games. Went to some frat parties. I never joined a frat. Didn't want it. So, yeah.
We would never
So
have met in college, Brian, because I was at every football
sorority.
game. I was a football
Ah,
recruiter. I was in the sorority,
if I
helping
could go back, I
people.
would. If I
Yeah.
was more confident, that's all. If I had more confidence, I'm sure I would have gone. But I had fun and I had friends,
Well,
so
you
that's
get your
good.
strength. Introverts get their strength from themselves, from having
Hmm.
downtime and being solo. And then
Hmm.
extroverts like myself, we get our energy from being around people. But
Hmm.
I'm married to an introvert, so I understand that and I get it. So I always give him his time. Like he
Good.
can go
Right.
hunting or
Right.
fishing. I have patience for that. So
Right.
we're all built
Just just
differently.
just just live life and enjoy what you're into, you know? Yeah. Love life is amazing. And so if we're so lucky to, have the basic needs met, to be wanting to help people, that's amazing. That's why you're doing this. You want to help people. So tell me something interesting about, let's say data centers, looking at the list of issues you list. Tell me
Right.
something interesting about data centers.
Well, interestingly, there are more data centers in this area where I live, in the state of Wisconsin than any others. And now it's become a very hot topic because David Crowley, who's running for governor, is firmly wants as many data centers as possible. He wants this to be the global epicenter for data centers. And Tom Tiffany, his opponent, who I support, who I'm more in line with, is saying, well, hold on a second. Let's have a criteria for data centers. Let's make sure that we're not taking farmland, make sure there's transparency, that there's not these non-disclosure agreements where everything's kind of clouded in secrecy. He also wants to make sure that the water source is not taking water from Lake Michigan, that there's a closed loop system, and that the electricity and that power, everyone's thinking, oh, my bills are going to go up because there's a data center. Make sure that whoever is the data center, let's say it's Microsoft, that they're paying for their electricity, and so that they're all doing that on their own. And he's big on not taking additional farmland for data centers. So I would follow his criteria. I feel like the data centers here that are in place are going to bring good socioeconomic benefits to the area. But there's also those folks, the neighbors and such, that they were dealing with lights, humming. They're worried about the environment. And so as a trustee, it was my job to listen to what they had to say, see what we could do to mitigate that. And then I'm taking the position that we have data centers. Let's see what they can do for this area because they're already in place in terms of jobs and AI and all of that. But do I want to just expand and have them everywhere? No, because now I'm talking to farmers and they don't want their farmland to be diminished and have an entire fields of data centers and or solar fields. And we're known in Wisconsin for the dairy, for the cheese, for the farming. We have a lot of local farmers. I go to one here that we go get our corn and tomatoes and cucumbers and things so we can have fresh food. And a lot of people love that. It's very culturally big here. And Brian, believe it or not, there's farm stands where it's on the honor system. So you show up and you get your bag and you throw your corn in, and it might be like, four for a dollar or six for a dollar or whatnot. And then tomatoes might be a dollar, two cucumbers for $2 or whatever it is. And I haven't seen cameras. When I stop in, I put my little money in the box and it doesn't get ripped off. And nobody takes the money and or the fruit
They
and the
probably got flock
vegetables.
cameras on it.
Well, that's another issue. The flock cameras. We have starting to see more and more of those here. People are really dead set against them. And I remember when I lived in Northern California, we found some jewelry heist thieves because they were on the exit cameras on this one particular exit. It was called Crow Canyon Road. And everybody was excited that we caught them, but now I think it's gone too far. I think we have, if you're going to use it, it's got to be very measured. And people don't want flock cameras on the golf course or, restaurants or seeing where people are going. And everyone I've talked to about flock cameras here in our district is saying, no bueno, we don't want more of it. At that the benefit of maybe capturing somebody here and there is not outweighed by the lack of privacy. So it's a big issue, and I'm listening to what people have to say, and they're not happy with them. And there's quite a bit of online, especially on this platform on X, where there's, no more flock, and there's all kinds of people posting problematic reasons to not have flock. For example, being pulled over and it's the wrong family, or somebody is searching for their ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, and maybe they're in law enforcement, and so they have access to it, and now it's infringing on those people's privacy. So that kind of thing. So yeah, good segue there, because what I'm seeing and hearing is that most people don't want the flock. There's some guy that was actually taking down flock cameras, like physically removing them. And then he went to court and they didn't
Oh,
prosecute. So that kind of gave him the
wow.
green light to keep doing it, I guess.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Vigilante. Bat flock man. Um, okay, so education, important.
Yes.
Talking about important local issues. What's needed locally for education?
Okay, what's needed locally is our schools are failing our kids. We have out of third and fourth graders, I think it's 3 out of 10 can read. And our
That's
outcomes
not
are
bad. Oh
horrible.
wait, 3 out of 10. Is that not good? Okay.
Now, that means 7 out of 10 can't
Public
read, only three.
education. So
Yeah, public education. Yep. So what I'm finding is by asking teachers, local educators, what's going on, they need the money for the teachers and they need the money for the students. They don't want the money to go to the administrative bloat where we're hiring
mhm,
supervisors or
mhm,
consultants or assistant principals or all of that. Put the money for the kids so that the teachers aren't begging for crayons and Kleenex and supplies. Supply the classrooms with what they need. Remove the digital. Get the phones out
mhm,
of the classroom. That's another policy I think that would help the teachers. Also, teachers are saying that there's so many distractions and disciplinary problems and nothing can be done. And so I was talking to a couple parents about this, and they're like, look, if my kid was goofing off or being disruptive to the teacher, I would want to know about it. And what they're not doing is they're not having the parent come up and pick the kid up. They're just leaving them, either outside the classroom or revolving door. So somehow we have to have solutions where the parents are tied into helping the teachers with the kids that are disruptive, so that so the teachers can teach. And the classroom size, that could be addressed as well. We have some teachers, 28, 29, 30 kids in the class. We either need to have a para educator in there or split that class up so we can have a little bit better ratio of teacher to child. So there's a number of different things that we can do. The one big one, Brian, is a state that is leading by example is Mississippi. They call it the
mhm,
Mississippi Miracle. Basically, the most disenfranchised, poor socioeconomic, lowest in the state had a big flip turnaround, and now they're one of the best. And what they did was they focused on back to the basics with phonics. So sounding out your words, reading, spelling, all of the basics, and taking the tablets out and going back to pen and
mhm.
paper. And just that old school, how when I was growing up, how I was taught. And so that has seemed to work really well. And so they're calling it the Mississippi Miracle, and they're asking other school districts to take a look at what they did and start implementing some of those policies, which I think would be great for Wisconsin to do.
Very interesting. What do you think about people who are advocates for alternative education, private school vouchers, and kind
Mhm.
of
I,
what do they
I,
call them?
yeah,
What do they call these
vouchers,
schools?
school choice,
Yeah, charter schools. See,
charter schools. Yep. My
what do you
brother
think about
was
all that?
part, yeah, my brother was part of a charter school for many years. So I'm very familiar with how that works. And I've been talking to people as well. The biggest benefactors of the voucher and some of those school options are kids that wouldn't be able to go to a private school without the help, without the voucher or without that school choice. So yeah, the high tide lifts all boats. We want everyone to have that opportunity. If your school is horrible and has a very bad reputation and kids aren't learning to read and write, and that's your only choice, how deflating is that? That you don't have an
Mm,
opportunity to get a better education somewhere. So yes, I think that's really important to give
I
people
guess,
that opportunity.
I guess the nuanced question would be: Is it Is it possible to pursue improving that public school, that failing public school, and support a voucher program, private things, or would you have to kind of say, hey, look, in the interest of improving the public education system, we gotta go fully in that direction and just give it our all.
I think you can do both. And what teachers and mothers are telling me is that competition creates improvement. So when you're competing with your private school and your public school, you're both wanting the better outcome. The competition is going to make you work harder and do better. Like you don't want to be shown up that your school's not doing as well as another school. There is no incentive if there's, if you're not, there's no checks and balances as to how a school is doing. How do we keep giving more money and more money to kids to the school when the enrollment is going down and the outcomes are getting worse? Something's not working. Something's absolutely not working. And it's kind of what I laid out. Kids aren't going to school prepared to learn. There's no consequence if they're disruptive. We have too many kids in the classroom. We're not supporting the teachers. Um, we're kind of glossing over a lot of the different problems by using the little phrase fully fund. Nobody can really define what that means. So I'd like to break it down and reallocate the funds. So we're actually measuring what what we're doing in schools and seeing if it works or not. And if it works, keep at it. If it's not working, then scrap it and move on to the next thing. It'd be pretty easy to start doing that. There's so many good teachers out there that really want good outcomes. They're getting it. You don't get into teaching because you're there for the money. You get in because you
Mm.
really want to help people and help kids, and you've been given that gift. Um, and so I would even advocate to giving teachers higher salaries to
Mm.
continue to recruit better teachers and reward them.
Mm.
If I'm a teacher and I know I'm going to get a $10,000 bonus if I get all my kids across the finish line in reading, you that might be an incentive for teachers to come up with some
Make it
different plans.
20%. Shit.
If you're just punching a clock and you get paid the same no matter what, that doesn't give anybody incentive. We're naturally going to work
Mm.
harder for an incentive. That is
Right.
and a reward and acknowledgement. And maybe it's not monetary. Hopefully, it is monetary for teachers, but I think we need to focus on that. And while I'm on the topic of teaching, I am saying this only because this is what I'm hearing. I have heard this at the doors. There was a woman that I spoke with at the door. I won't say the school name. I don't want to out anybody, but she said her daughter joined a group under the guise of inclusivity, thinking she was making friends. And then fast forward a few weeks later, and her daughter's coming home with ideas about becoming a boy and wanting to cut her hair and want to wear boy clothes and just all this craziness. She said, none of this is coming from home. And so come to find out, there are schools, not all, but there are schools where there are these clubs and these social areas where there's an ideology being taught or being suggested, and kids are so vulnerable and at such a young age. I just want all of that out of the
It's
classroom. I
so
think that's really
out of the
disruptive.
classroom for sure. And I don't know what you can do about private groups of teenagers meeting up if that's what it is, but it's a little scary, if people, someone is born, if you're born a certain way, then you're born a certain way, fine. But the the idea of social contagion is disturbing. And what can you say? What can you do about it? I mean, you don't want to deny the existence of people. You know, I know trans people. I know a lot of trans people. I don't, I don't personally know a lot of trans people, but I've just
I know of a
randomly.
family that's going through it, and I know of a couple different instances. And this wasn't happening 10 years ago. This is all in the last maybe since 2018, 2020. Maybe there have been cases of it. I certainly didn't know any growing
Yeah.
up, but to have a push or a club suggesting it, I know I've seen a couple documentaries on it.
Mm.
It is a little disturbing. There is a couple bills here in Wisconsin about including transgender biological boys and girls sports, and it's kind of lit a firestorm. It's actually nationally lit a firestorm with Sophie Cunningham speaking
Hmm.
out with the WNBA, and then quite a few other athletes jumping in, both male and female athletes. It's just about protecting girls. It's not that there's anything, there's no transphobia with anybody else personal choices. It's just girls want to feel safe and feel comfortable in their own locker room and their own space. I know this personally because it happened to me. I was at Planet Fitness here locally in Wisconsin, which I'm no longer a member of. And there was a man who maybe he was on hormones, I'm not sure, but he was dressing as a female. He identified as a female, and he would come and just loiter in the locker room. And I just didn't feel comfortable at all. I didn't want to change. I didn't want to go to the bathroom in there. I just grabbed my stuff, left, and I complained about it and, brought it to their attention. And they said there was nothing they can do. So I said, well, there's something I can do. I can leave Planet Fitness and I can go to another gym where
Right.
do respect that. So I think it's just a lot about choices, but let's not put it in the classroom with suggesting that ideology. And my young intern Brett, he was 18. He just left for college. He told me that in every one of his classrooms there was a pride flag, but not the American flag.
Yeah.
And
It's a
so
different
that's really
time.
disheartening.
It's
It is a
different.
different time.
I don't know. It's not. I'm a liberal guy. You know.
Me too.
Um,
Yeah.
but
I,
it's
we
I grew up with an American flag in the classroom, and I
right.
put my heart on my hand on my heart. I said the pledge, and now it's. I guess it wasn't a super diverse area, but there was you know there was a bit of diversity, more and more over the years in the town I grew up in, and it was just that classic '90s upbringing, and I miss that, and that's the
I miss it
common
too.
sense, and what's going, and so we're not looking for divisive issues,
No,
but here they are, and
right.
what do you do?
Here they are. We do the best that we can do, Brian, with what we have in front of us. And we talk to people, we keep an open mind, but true, you operate in truth. You know what's right and you know what you see, and you just have to continue the path forward. And what you're doing is great, asking people to come on, give different perspectives. And all the posts that I've seen since I've been following you, it's just you're very open-ended and open-minded, which I am as well. I mean, nothing I'm saying is hard. I won't ever undo what I have to see, but I'm just basing this on what I'm seeing and hearing from people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what really a state representative is for, is you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to represent the
Right.
people, not go in with, here's my ideology and here's what I think. And so I want
Right.
to get elected so I can push this or push that onto people. No, it's quite the opposite. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your time today. My
Absolutely. Yes.
husband
Thanks,
is
Gina.
he's a Harley guy. He has a
Oh yeah.
motorcycle, and on Sundays he has a group. They go do a ride just to, like, that's their therapy. They like blow off
Right.
steam. And I get
Amazing.
that. And so he's given me the signal. So I don't know if I'm supposed to go with him or not, but
Okay, well, go on that ride. Thank you so much. And we'll be following your campaign. And quickly tell us the website we can go to support you.
okay, so Gina for WI Assembly, for the number four, Gina for Assembly. Hopefully you'll, if you when you
I'll
post
link
this, you
it.
can tag it. Yeah, you can
I
link
will.
it, which would be great. And I have I don't know, a little over 1,000 followers. I really would appreciate just the exposure, because I know that it's getting your name out and getting people to know who you are is half the battle.
Right.
So
We're going to
I appreciate
swarm
your
you on
time.
social media. We're
Oh,
incoming. The Scout Squad is incoming. Thank you so much, Gina, for your time. I really
thank you,
appreciate it. I
Brian.
find you very impressive. Have a great day. Enjoy your ride.
You too. God bless. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Bye bye.
Bye bye.